Islam leader Louise Farrakhan sparked controversy after his anti-Semitic speech last month, while now the Republican Jewish coalition calling on 7 congressional Black Caucus members on your screen right now to resign because of their alleged ties to Farrakhan. Doug Schoen with us. He's a former Clinton pollster, Fox News contributor, and still a Democrat.
Yes, sir.
Democrats have got a problem here.
They do. That's absolutely right.
That is a big problem.
Look, I think what they should do is denounce Farrakhan in no uncertain terms, denounce the speech. I don't necessarily think they have to resign, but if they fail to distance themselves from somebody who preaches hate and anti-Semitism, they don't really deserve to wear the mantle of leaders.
But they're not going to renounce him. I mean, you've got pictures here of Maxine Waters with Farrakhan. I think Greg Meeks was with Farrakhan. There is no picture of President Obama way back when, maybe 10 years ago, with Farrakhan. They're not going to do it. And Keith Ellison,
who's the vice chairman and was supported by Chuck Schumer. Look, it's very disquieting to me. The Democratic Party has moved away, Stuart, from its historic ties and support of Israel. They're for a balanced approach, which is code language for being pro-Palestinian. Look, I'm very discouraged. You know, you ask me jokingly each time I'm here, am I still a Democrat? This kind of stuff makes it tougher and tougher to be a Democrat.
It seemed like things are, your party had completely left you behind.
They did.
I mean, look, you're a John.
All right, as we continue the special news-breaking edition of Hannity, tonight an investigation into the bigotry of the left. So when are prominent Democrats and Women's March organizers, when will they denounce Louise Farrakhan, who's one of the most hateful, racist, anti-Semitic people in America today? And why did the Congressional Black Caucus pressure a photographer to keep this photo of Barack Obama and Louise Farrakhan a secret before the 2008 election? Now, we're going to cover all of that and more in tonight's mini monologue. We've been following a story that the Daily Caller broke earlier this week about 7 Democratic lawmakers having ties to Louise Farrakhan. Now, this list includes Representatives Maxine Waters, Keith Ellison, who's also the deputy co-chair of the DNC, Congresswoman Barbara Lee, Danny Davis, Andre Carson, Gregory Meeks, and Al Green. Now, these alarming connections to Farrakhan are causing the Republican Jewish coalition, rightly, to call on these lawmakers to resign. Now, those members of Congress aren't the only liberals that have relationships with Farrakhan. We'll have more on that in just a second. Now, Tamika Mallory, she's the co-chair of the Women's March. She actually attended a recent Farrakhan event. It was called Savior's Day in Chicago, where he said these despicable things.
The powerful Jews are my enemies. White folks are going down. And Satan is going down. And Farrakhan, by God's grace, has pulled the cover off of that satanic Jew.
He has only a history of this kind of racism and anti-Semitism. Now, Tamika Mallory, she posted on Instagram about the event, and according to the Anti-Defamation League, Farrakhan actually gave Mallory a shout-out during this speech. Now, after intense backlash, Mallory is out with a statement where she apologizes to the various groups of people that Farrakhan routinely and viciously and hatefully attacks, but then she also defended her attendance. And she writes in part, quote, "I didn't expect my presence at Savior's Day to lead anyone to question my beliefs, especially considering that I have been going to this event regularly for over 30 years. And she continues, "Where my people are is where I must also be. I go into difficult spaces. I attend meetings with police and legislators, and the very folks so much of my protest has been directed towards." This is an utterly ridiculous argument. Now, you can't attend Farrakhan events for over 30 years, like Mallory has just admitted, and then all of a sudden pretend to be surprised and learn that he spews vile, hateful, racist, and anti-Semitic rhetoric. Now, this is what the left does every single time. They hang these people out, the radical left-wingers, they hang out with them, and then either flat out deny their relationships or they just pretend like it just isn't a big deal. For example, let's look at how some of those 7 Democratic members of Congress are reacting to being exposed to having these ties to Farrakhan. Now, Congressman Keith Ellison, well, he told the Washington Post, "Oh, none of my colleagues ever asked me about that, only reporters. I'm telling you, no one cares." Pretty disgraceful. And this is the same Keith Ellison that accuses Republicans of being racist and for years has been trying to dodge and downplay allegations of anti-Semitism. And of course, Ellison, he's not alone. Back in February, Congressman Danny Davis told the Daily Caller he's not bothered by Farrakhan's position on, quote, the Jewish question. And Congressman Davis has previously told the Daily Caller that he thinks Farrakhan is a, quote, outstanding human being. And Danny is now changing his tune and denouncing Farrakhan. Now, we reached out to all 7 members of Congress for comment. They all ignored us except for Congressman Gregory Meeks. He directed us to a tweet where he condemns Farrakhan's anti-Semitic statement, but then goes on to attack President Trump. As for the other members of Congress, well, that are not denouncing their ties to Farrakhan, the Daily Caller is reporting that Maxine Waters, Barbara Lee, Andre Carson, Al Green have all attended meetings with Farrakhan while serving as members of Congress. And by the way, take a look at this. It's a stunning video that shows Maxine Waters, Barbara Lee, Al Green all hugging and shaking hands with, yes, the racist anti-Semite Louise Farrakhan. And according to the Daily Caller, this happened in 2006 during an event in New Orleans. Now, for years, these members of Congress have been able to maintain relationships with Farrakhan because most members of the media give them a pass. There's no accountability, no punishment for hanging out with hate-filled extremists. In fact, it's become a defining characteristic of the left, including former President Barack Obama. Now, we told you how Obama sat in the pews of the Reverend Wright's church, the Church of GD America, for over 20 years, how he launched his political career inside the living room of unrepentant domestic terrorists Bill Ayers and Bernardine Dorn. Given that information, this 2005 photo of Barack Obama grinning ear to ear with Louise Farrakhan, it shouldn't be a surprise. Now, the reason you never saw this before the election in 2008 is because the photographer who took the picture says he was pressured by the Congressional Black Caucus to keep it a secret. And the photographer also says that he thinks that this photo would have made a difference in the 2008 election. I believe he's right. This photo would have further exposed everything we were uncovering on this show about Barack Obama and his radical, rigid leftist beliefs and friends. We did reach out to Obama for comment about Farrakhan's comments. Not surprisingly, we didn't hear back from his spokesman. And here's the most important question about this. If Farrakhan isn't that bad of a guy, like several Democrats are claiming, then why is it necessary to hide a photo of him with Obama? Well, maybe it's because Democrats didn't want you to be reminded of Farrakhan and his history of hate. This is just a small sampling. Take a look.
Here the Jews don't like Farrakhan, so they call me Hitler. Well, that's a good name. Hitler was a very great man. There were many Israelis and Zionist Jews in key roles in the 9/11 attacks, because you see, white people deserve to die. And they know. So they think it's us coming to do it. There is no human being on earth that has murdered more living things than the Caucasian. He's a murderer and a liar.
Then soon we're going to sit at a table and talk about we tired. We want some of this earth. Or we'll tear this goddamn country up.
All right, here now with reaction, Fox News contributor Herman Cain. Herman, simple question, not complicated question. Imagine somebody that racist, anti-Semitic, that hateful, and a picture with Donald Trump.
A friend of mine recently shared something with me that describes Farrakhan and his hypocritical racist rhetoric, and that is, stop dreaming of a better yesterday. He is talking in the past, living in the past, and unfortunately, too many people are also embracing his racist, hypocritical rhetoric. And here's something no one is talking about. He attacks the Jews because he doesn't want to alienate all black people. But what he is unaware of is that some black people will not embrace his hypocritical racist rhetoric. For example, he makes the statement that the Trump administration, for example, has all white people in charge of everything. Have they heard of a guy by the name of Ben Carson? And as soon as Ben Carson openly criticized Obamacare, he got on what is not really written called the Black Folks Blacklist. Ben Carson got put on that list. His hometown newspaper criticized him. I am an ABC, an American Black conservative, and I'm probably on that list also, Sean. But what they don't know is that many Black people aren't living in the past. They're living in the present and what the future can be.
You're also on the SHGA list, so Sean Hannity Great American list, if we're going to come out. How is it that these congressmen and all these people associate with this guy, and there is zero coverage, zero condemnation? Because if it was a Republican associated with anybody similar, it would be the biggest news in the country. How is that possible?
It is possible, Sean, because these organizations are afraid to criticize a Black personality like Farrakhan. I didn't say he was a good personality. And then when you have Black members of Congress who affiliate with Farrakhan, they are afraid to attack them because they don't want to be accused of being a racist. That's how they get away with it. But the thing that they don't realize is they now represent the minority of people who think like that. And that's probably the best news about all of this racist rhetoric that he and the people that support him are trying to basically promote.